Hello everybody, this is Post-Production Pie with SLRLounge.com. Welcome to another episode of Constructive Critique. This is where you guys go to SLRLounge.com, jump into the forums, and then go down to the Constructive Critique category where you can submit images for constructive critique to your heart's content. Of course, we do always recommend, well, not recommend, but please do read the Constructive Critique rules before participating, and make sure that in addition to submitting images for critique, you guys go and critique other people's images as well. It helps to foster a mutual giving relationship, guys, an atmosphere of love. All right, now let's start verbal bashing everybody. I'm just kidding. Let's go on to our first image. This is from 3.0. First attempt at compositing a la Joel Grimes. Now this is kind of that signature Joel Grimes HDR composite look. And I think you did a great job with it. I mean, you have that signature kind of double-edged lighting on both sides with that softer main light in front, which is really awesome for shots like this or, you know, kind of athletes, and it really creates more of that manly man look, you know what I mean, in the photos. I dig it. The background is also a good matching background for our subject matter. You know, you kind of have this rundown industrial looking background with our dude over here who's ripped, and he's ripped because he is a Terminator. I actually dig the effect. It looks like you basically masked in, or you placed a Terminator image underneath and masked into it to kind of reveal the mechanical skeleton underneath him. But it's awesome. I really dig it. I think to really be able to critique this well, I'd probably need to see it larger, just because that's the dead giveaway for compositing is noticeable at larger sizes, where we look at the edges, where we can see the fine detail of the image. But from this view, I think it's a great job. And it looks like for your first attempt, not bad there, 3.0. Let's go on to our next image. This is Her by Arash D. All right, he's been experimenting with off-camera flash for more than 2 months. He bought a 43-inch umbrella trying to wrap the light around the subject, and this is one of the pictures with the new setup. Okay, so let's take a look at the lighting. It looks like you have a little hair light on this side. You have your main light on this side with your umbrella. And the first thing you probably noticed when you're shooting with an umbrella with your speed lights outdoors is just that you don't have that much power to play with. You're a little bit limited as far as power, because it's not a full strobe, and so they are fairly light. That's why it looks like you're compensating for that by bringing it in fairly close to your subject. Overall, it's a great shot. I really dig it. I think the lighting is great. I love this hair effect on this side, and the kind of edge lighting is really nice. It's not too hard. It's just an overall nice look. Now, whether you leave this flare in is really up to you, but just be aware that flares like this, not only do they become visible in the frame, but they will also reduce a little bit of the sharpness and the color in your image. So if you want the ultimate amount of contrast and sharpness, make sure that you essentially either flag or block that flag, or block the flash, so it's not directly entering the lens. Overall, as far as her pose and position, I think there's just something that's a little bit missing. I mean, I dig it. I like what she's doing, but I don't think she's quite pulling off that modeling look with the elbows and stuff. That's just a thing that it's very hard to describe why. I think most of the time when I've seen this shot, there's a little bit more attitude in it, and generally they're looking into the camera with kind of those big, open, you know, very attitude-y eyes. Attitude-y. That's a nice another word that I made up here. All right, so I think the pose, you know, it's not quite working for her, but I dig the overall photograph. I dig the lighting, the crop, the composition, everything about it. It's just that her look and stuff is kind of a little bit off for me. A lot of times when I notice stuff like this, you know, a lot of times we'll be working with amateur models or people that we're shooting portraits of, and they're just not familiar with being in front of a camera, and they have a harder time with these kind of poses. When I see that, I don't specifically say out loud, "Oh, looks like you're not getting this," because that will kill someone's confidence. But you just say, "Oh, that's great, beautiful. Let's try this," and you kind of move them and coach them into another pose, one that they might be a little bit more comfortable with. All right, let's move on to our next shot, and this is girl. Oh, one other thing I was going to mention with this image here is that our subject here she's quite beautiful, but she does have a little bit slightly larger of a head, and this pose is actually going to make her head look kind of bigger in proportion to her body, because bringing her hands up is going to make her torso look very thin, whereas her head is going to look larger in the frame. So certain things that are going to affect that is basically focal range. When you're shooting on wide lenses closer up, that's going to kind of distort the head, especially when you're shooting a little bit top down. And also poses like this are going to kind of affect that as well, because we have a lot of skin that's attached to her head, which is kind of serving to enlarge the size of her head while we're moving or basically removing that arm or that side width from her torso. And so it kind of has this effect of making her head larger while making her body smaller, and it's a little bit disproportionate. But that's just a little fine detail there for you, so hopefully that helps you out. Let's go on to Girl. Now Girl is shot by Hendrik, and this is at 132 3/20th of a second at f/5.3, ISO 200 on a cloudy day, windy, cold. This is a rather not so warm dress to be wearing on a cold day, so she's probably freezing. But I dig this shot. I think overall the composition, I love it. I like what you're doing with it. There's a couple things that are a little bit distracting to me as far as the composition or the image itself, and that's these kind of pieces of broken areas in the wall. They draw a lot of attention, and rather than kind of shooting around the corner, I might have just used the wall itself, just this white wall to lead into her eyes without shooting around the corner so you don't capture this, because it does draw quite a bit of visual weight in the image. And then I also kind of would probably clone this guy out. So you just basically have this white wall leading right into her. It's all about the subject. As far as the subject itself, she's giving this kind of sleepy-eyed look. And I'm always really careful with this. It depends on basically, well, it depends on a lot of things. When you see this sleepy-eyed look, a couple things you want to do is drop the chin a little bit so that she's looking up more into the lens. This opens up the eyes. It makes it look like, I mean, you can see more of her eyes, and you can still have her squint a bit, but just watch out for that kind of sleepy look that you might get. The other thing is that we're seeing almost too much whites in her eyes. Okay, generally when you have someone looking like basically their chin is one direction, they're looking off in another direction of the camera, you don't want to see that much white in the eyes because it looks like they're basically looking too far over. So basically pull her chin back a little bit, and then you'll see less white, a little bit more iris, and it's kind of more balanced out. Last thing I would mention is that her hair, it looks like it is windy. There's not much you can do about this other than just wait for the wind to die down. But with the hair lifted up over here, it kind of creates a little bit of difficulty in retouch. A lot of girls would be really sensitive about printing something out like this just because of that hair is kind of flowing up. And it's very visible, especially once it gets larger on print. And to retouch that out, it's going to be a little bit difficult. So a couple ways you can do that is essentially flag or block the wind with like a reflector, or just wait for the wind to die down. Overall though, I dig the shot. I like the post-production, everything else about it. I think it's cool. So great job, Heinrich. Let's go on to the next image. This was by Teal, and it says, "Hey community, let's see, so ill, haven't heard nothing from me for a bit. Hope you're feeling a little bit better, Teal. It looks like you were ill, not the image itself isn't ill. It's the, well, unless you mean ill like in the rapping sense, like that's sick. You know what I'm saying? I'm just kidding, guys. I do not pull off that word very well, and that's why it's not in my vocabulary. All right, let's go on to the EXIF data. 1/15th of a second, f/5.6, ISO 100, 55 millimeters. This is a great shot. I absolutely love this shot. We've seen a lot of macro shots where you look at them and you're kind of like, I'm lacking some of that interest in this shot that I want to have. It's a cool texture, it's kind of a cool idea, but there's not a lot of interest in keeping me in the image. But this image, it works, and the interest here is that you're zooming in close on this barbed wire, and we see this nice little piece of barbed wire basically in the center of the frame, and that looks great. It looks nice, but what's really drawing you in, what's keeping you looking at this image, is that frost effect around the barbed wire. It creates such a beautiful texture and kind of these pattern effects that's really enticing to look at, and I love it. I like the overall toning that you did. Everything about this, it just works for me, all right? Let's go on to The Fountain by Tina Bug. All right, she says she's new and would like our opinion. This was taken with a D60 at ISO 100, shutter speed of 30 seconds at f/14. Let's take a look at this. And this is a really nice shot, and we can actually see she linked to 500 pixels. Let's look at the full version of the image so we can see it in all of its glory. Not bad shot. I like it. There's a couple things that I think I would mention with this shot. I dig that you're dragging the exposure to really get that cool reflection off of the water. It looks beautiful. But there's a couple things that are a little bit off. And one is the blue line that's basically going across. Now this is caused most likely by a boat or whatever object it is with a strong light that's basically traveling across this river. Sometimes there are certain things you can do to control that. Sometimes there's not. When there's not, I'd always recommend just waiting until it moves across the scene and you just shoot without it. That way, or I mean, if you just were passing through and you had to get this shot and this is all you could get, I would say clone this out because it's such a strong line that it's basically drawing a lot of visual weight. It's very bright, it's very bold, and so our eyes kind of go straight to that line to figure out what it is. Next thing I would mention, this is really more of a finicky thing, but is the shape of the fountain. When there's wind going on, it's not really all that possible to basically alter the shape of a fountain because the wind's blowing it. But if you can basically shoot it at a time where the wind has died down, get a more kind of pleasing straight up and down the shape in the fountain, it looks just a little bit more kind of uniform and stuff like that. That's a very nitpicky thing, and it's kind of more subjective as well, because I do like this look to it too. But it just is kind of it's kind of visually a little bit out of place because it creates a shape that's not anywhere else in this image. And so that's what's kind of a little bit off about it. Otherwise, though, I think it's a really nice photo. It's something that you'd probably want to blow up and stick on your wall. I dig it. And good job. So let's head on to Milkweed, which is by Jack Chaskell. I hope I pronounced that right. All right, this is taken at 1/1000 of a second, f5.6, ISO 200 on a Nikon D3200 with an 18 to 55 millimeter kit lens at 44 millimeters. Now, I kind of like this shot. I mean, it's a very simple macro close-up shot, but it's of something that I really haven't looked at close up. And this looks like basically cotton flowers or something like that that's basically kind of blooming. And it's interesting to me because I never have really seen these kind of flowers before, these little cotton trees, whatever they are. I haven't really seen them up close like that. And that's what kind of adds that interest. I also like the bokeh in the background. It's very pleasing to my eye, and overall it kind of works. Now, I'd say if you're someone that lives around these trees and you've seen them a ton, this probably isn't going to be anything that floats your boat, because it's not necessarily shot in a way that you're just like, oh my gosh, that's an amazing image. But it's interesting to me because it's something that I haven't seen close up. I like the way that it's been processed. It's very natural, very nice and light. So great job overall. And I'd say also you could probably make it a little more interesting just by getting in a little bit tighter, showing up some of that really close-up detail with a macro lens, and giving us some close-ups on these seeds and stuff like that coming out of this. Oh, you said it was milkweed. It's not a cotton tree, it's milkweed. So anyway, I don't know what milkweed is because we don't have any around here. All right, let's go on to the next video or image. Here we have Adam Caldwell's Sunny Side of the Moon. This is a photo of a friend, model Sunny, pretending to work but acts drawing nonsense. Wasn't really seriously shooting on this day, just set up my flower at full power and was bouncing off the ceiling whilst taking shots. All right. Overall, I think this is totally just a great shot. I mean, there's what I'm going to say is that there's not anything in this shot that makes me go, wow. It kind of looks like you took a nice shot of your friend that's sitting there studying, and that's exactly what it looks like. That's what it kind of conveys. Beyond that, I don't really know, like, say, I guess the visual importance, like, of what you're trying to convey with this image. I get that it's kind of a candid shot of her doing something, you know, drawing doodles or working or whatever. But I would say, kind of, what is the goal of the image? Is it supposed to be something that is meant for commercial use, or for schools, or for basically fashion, or for whatever it is? Because those are going to influence the way that you shoot it. It doesn't matter really what you're shooting for, but I always say, if you're going into a shoot, have a vision, regardless of if this is just casually sitting down and just shooting some photos. Have a vision for what you want to actually accomplish with it. Because as it is right now, I kind of get the feeling that this is just a random photo of your friend sitting there doing stuff. And from a viewer standpoint, there's not really much interest there unless I were to actually know you or to know this person. Otherwise, I think it's really nice. It's a good job of flash bouncing. I think you bounced off the right wall because you can see that shadow coming down. So it looks off the right ceiling, basically, or the corner of the wall. And it looks cool. The effect is also nice, post-production effect and all that. So that's the only critique that I kind of give on that, is kind of figuring out, you know, the overall vision or goal of that shot. I'd also say don't crop it at the joints. So we have a crop here right really close to the ankles, and it's a little bit strange. So you generally try and not crop at joints. All right, let's go on to our Guitar Man photo by Christoph. All right, so here we have Christoph's Guitar Man. Looks like he got into the SLR Lounge preset system, fell in love with the Teal preset, and I love that. You know, we created this Teal preset to kind of give it that movie Hollywood look, something that you might see like with those teal green effects in something like Matrix, or these movies that are kind of very grungy and very guy-oriented type stuff, and it works perfectly for this photo because this is the exact kind of photo that you'd want to use it on. We have a lot of teal colors originally in the photo. All of the other colors are very neutral in it, so it just works really well with this this preset. And it's also kind of that same tone as far as we have, you know, your son or whoever this, yeah, it's a picture of your son. So you have your son rehearsing, and he wants to look cool, like a cool dude playing guitar, man. He doesn't want to look like you know, like a girly guy playing guitar with this soft light preset or anything like that. He wants to look like a man. And you've done a great job accomplishing that. I love the lighting on him. It has a really cool dramatic edge basically to it where we have a great fall off and wrapping. It looks like it was probably done with an umbrella or with a bounce, but you have a really nice dramatic look with this falling off into shadows, but not to the point where we can't see any of the detail in the shadows. So overall, Christoph, another great job on your lighting, great job on the post-production. Overall, this image just works out really well. And this is a very interesting guitar, by the way. What kind of guitar is this? It has unique pickups. All right. Let's go on to the next image, which is Squash Soldiers. Now, I think I looked at this image quite a few times, but I don't think I've actually critiqued it. This image is awesome. I love it. It's a very simple image, just a black and white taken from above the squash. But the black and white preset does a great job, or just black and white look on this, does a great job of just bringing out the texture. I mean, all we're focusing on is this really cool texture in these objects in the scene. I dig it. It's very interesting to look at. The one thing that I think kind of doesn't fit quite in there is this streak of a branch coming off of this one squash, which if there's nothing you can do to the squash, then maybe you can basically just clone that out. So that way we have this kind of nice visual palette of just these beautifully round shaped objects in the scene. But it's a really cool image. I dig it. All right, let's go on to Once in a Blue Moon. This is by Legilize, and this was taken on a D800 2470 at f11. This was shot, was the second full moon of the month, making it the blue moon. Okay, let's take a look. Well, this image is awesome. I like it. I actually really dig this shot. This is in, I believe, Monument Valley, right? Yep. Did you say that already? Oh, yeah, you did. Monument Valley. Oh, this is in Arizona. We just passed through Monument Valley for the HDR DVD. I thought that was in the Utah side, but I guess that's Arizona side. But this is a great shot. I absolutely dig it. And I think the way that it's processed, the way that it's shot, I'm liking a lot. I think it'd be just a tad bit stronger if just we saw a little bit more of this this left side monument. But it's really hard because I know, you're trying to get the moon in there too and stuff. And so I might have zoomed out just a little bit so that the left side monument was kind of at the left 1/3. This one was right in the middle, and then the moon was on the right 1/3 if possible. If not, you know what, that's a really nitpicky thing. And I dig the way this looks overall. I like the toning where we have this red rock, kind of the super red sands contrasted by this really cool blue sky. I love it. Looks great. And by the way, if you guys ever want to know, how do I take a shot of like a monument or something with the moon or the sun in the background and make the moon look absolutely huge? Well, just grab a telephoto lens and stand really far back from the object that you're shooting and zoom all the way in at, say, 200 millimeters. Then you're going to get that lens compression, which is going to make background objects appear much closer to foreground objects. So another way that you guys could basically use this a different lens in the same scene to create a really different effect with a moon that looks absolutely huge. And that's what they do in movies when you see kind of the moon absolutely huge. Usually it's because it's either, computer graphics, or it's because they're using a telephoto length lens and they're shooting with the moon in the background, and that compression brings it up much closer to the lens. All right, that's it for this episode of Constructive Critique. We'll see you all in the next video.